They say the most important rule of real estate is location, location, location. When it comes to organizations, the rule is communication, communication, communication. In the life of any organization, keeping everybody in the know is without a doubt one of the most important challenges facing a large group of people trying to work together toward a common goal. And Cibolo Creek is no exception. Talk about a lot to communicate. Cibolo Creek Community Church has stuff happening all the time, and it's increasing every month. Making sure everybody knows what is going on while maintaining our vision to be a church for the unchurched is a big task. In an effort to improve our communication here at Cibolo Creek, I've invited our media director, Ryan Ritchie, to share some of the new approaches we are adopting. And working alongside of Ryan in seeking to improve our organization's communications is our adult ministry director, Kristen Burford. Both she and Ryan want to make sure all of your important events and opportunities are being shared in the most effective ways possible. So here are Ryan and Kristen to share some of the important strategies we will be using to better communicate here at Cibolo Creek.
So Ryan.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Have a new strategy in place?
Yes.
Why do we even need a communication strategy?
When any organization, you need to kind of get a handle on what's being said and how it's being said and where it's being said. Because a lot of times, if we're just creating noise. If it's not to the point and targeted to a specific audience. And right now we're living in the biggest shift, a communication shift in the world since Gutenberg, with the emergence of digital media and online and how people are consuming content. There's so many things that are vying for our attention. Think about, I don't watch a TV show that airs at a specific time. I watch it on demand. I watch it on Hulu. I watch it on Netflix. And people do the same thing with everything. Used to be Sunday was a sacred day. And so there was a lot of have tos or ought tos. I ought to go to church on Sunday. I ought to go to this, study, or I should do that. But now there's so many other things that are vying for our time, especially on Sundays, with sports and soccer and cheerleading and this and that. And there's so many things that are fighting for our attention. People choose what they want to do based on how it benefits them and their family. So if we continue to just spew information, we become noise and then become ignored. According to Pew Research, the millennial generation, which is the 18 to 35s, is the largest living generation in North America. It used to be the boomers, and then my generation just kind of skipped, and now it's the millennial generation, which is the largest generation. But sadly, that's the largest missing generation that is in our churches. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, for us to become the church that's effective in changing lives and changing the world, we have to look towards that generation and learn how they're communicating and how they want to be communicated to, so that we can reach them with the gospel. The millennial generation has grown up with cell phones. They've grown up with digital media as a daily part of their life. My generation, which I read something the other day, an article that calls us, that were born from like 73 to 83, something around there, they called us the Xennials. It's kind of the bridge between the Generation X and the millennials, because we grew up knowing what Be Kind, Rewind, we know what that means. And we know how to use a payphone. We knew how to radio dials, and we had those in my house. I know what they are. We grew up with that, but had to quickly adopt the digital world as an adult. Like I didn't get a cell phone until I was in college, and I thought text messaging was amazing. And it was a big thing. It was a big thing. I had to go 1111 just to get to a C, and so we know what that's like. So we've had to grow up and quickly adapt to a new way of communication. And so now this new generation, the millennials, who are going to be the largest voting population come the next election, not to get political, but they will be the deciding factor. They're going to be what's deciding the direction our nation is going.
Sure, the movers and shakers. will be
Right.
the
And so we have to pay attention to that, and we can't continue to do the same things we've always done. We won't communicate to them. In other words, what got us here won't get us there. And so we have to continue to evolve and change, or we'll be left behind. If we want to be effective in ministering to our community, we have to figure out ways to communicate to them.
Sure, makes sense. We've got to change.
We got to change.
So, given that, what are some of the changes that are occurring in our communication strategy to address that?
Our biggest change is going to be focusing our efforts toward digital communications. And this year we're launching 3 major digital communication platforms, we're doing a new website with live streaming. We're launching a Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV app. We're also launching a mobile app.
Exciting.
Yeah, so those are fun things.
How might some of these changes affect the way that our ministry leaders promote or their
Right.
promotional content?
In an effort to communicate more clearly and concisely, our Sunday morning services are going to be geared towards the first-time guest. So everything that we talk about from the stage is going to be large group, church-wide, large programmed ministries that happen, which are Kids Creek, our adult service, and Overflow. Those are the things that we have weekly that are programmed, that we put a lot of time and effort into, involve the entire church, like our Together initiative or Serving Sunday, things that we want everybody to be involved in, community groups, things that are church-wide for every age group. Another way we may communicate outside of that realm would be, for instance, if Paul is talking about missions in his sermon, we may talk about, we want to bring to light some of our local mission opportunities or global mission opportunities. They may seem segmented and like, why are y'all talking about that? Well, it pertains to what he's talking about in the message. We want everything that we communicate on Sunday to kind of mesh together. And so it's not segmented out and disjointed. We want everything to be cohesive in what we're doing as a church together.
That's great, so that the first-time visitor's experience is consistent and cohesive and makes sense on a
Right,
Sunday
right.
morning. I like it. So for some of our other ministries that don't fall into that programmed realm, how might that affect them on a Sunday?
I know we're going to get some pushback because that's not the way we've always done it, and not that that's, yeah, you're right, and that may be true, but just because we always done it doesn't mean that we always will or we should, and not that because we haven't done it we should. But we're looking at everything from a 20,000 foot viewpoint. We're trying to see everything that is going on in a particular month and go, how can we communicate these events the best that benefit them? And so we're not just picking and choosing what and where we want to talk about something. We're looking at what's going to be the most effective way to communicate what's happening and how to get people involved in it.
Which kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning, and that is when we're dumping a whole bunch of information, it gets lost in the
Right.
noise anyway.
It does.
So it wouldn't be effective for them.
Right.
So
The goal isn't to push our smaller ministries aside, for the big guys. It's really we want to communicate to a specific target audience the best that we can. So all of our communication efforts, we want to be targeted to that specific audience. For instance, if you have and my wife's gonna get mad at me, if you have a knitting group, right? You don't want to talk about the knitting group to a crowd of 400 when there's only 12 in it.
yes.
And so, sure, yeah, but you might get somebody involved in it. True, you may, but you're probably not. So we have to look at what is the best for the entire group that you have in front of you and what pertains to the largest amount that's there.
Sure. So to go back to the beginning and of what you started with and kind of bring that full circle, we're going to be very targeted towards our unchurched, our first-time guests, and really keeping in mind that framework of the millennials who
Right.
happen to be our biggest consumer, biggest audience, and our biggest unchurched group.
Right.
So while it may seem like it's a big change, and it will be a big change, there's purpose behind it.
Right.
And that's the important part, that we're trying to reach those that are unchurched, trying to reach that millennial generation.
Right. we all on staff know that this is going to be a big change for our ministry leaders, and we just ask that you give us grace that while we're trying this out, we're learning as we're going, because unfortunately there's no manual, and so what we've come up with and the things that we've decided to do has been research. I mean, we've talked to many different churches, large churches, to figure out how they're handling this shift and how they are addressing the issues, the same issues that we have. So rest assured, we're not just kind of pulling this out of thin air. We have thought about it, and we ask that you give us grace during this transition. And we're not saying we're going to get it perfect every time, but we are going to do the best we possibly can to communicate the best we possibly can. So
Great.
thank y'all for taking the time to hang out with us, and we hope to do this again.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya.